are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your question in a comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by a speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our VIBAL webinars. Experience learning, Kabibal. And now, to proceed with our webinar this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker for today. Our speaker for this morning is a consultant and evaluator of K-12 Philippine Basic Education Curriculum and academic consultant for Sisters of Mary Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brother Roderick M. Aguirre.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again once more for a week learning about how we can help ourselves become more equipped with distance education and online learning. And this is more of what I do in preparing for the modules that is requested of me from some schools. And I will have a little bit of demonstration how I do it step by step. I'm sorry, but I'm a kind of person that would always come up with a structure how to do things. And once I have done those procedures and structure and it turned out well and efficient for me and effective at the same time, I go with it. I go with it. And this is the flow that I've been doing. And the same flow and phases of developing the modules that I'm gonna share with you today are the same steps that I have taught Sisters of Mary, the module developers of Sisters of Mary, and the module developers of the Benedict Institute of Learning. So these are the phases that are developmentally, for me, developmentally appropriate in the sense that there is what we call as Q&A, that's quality assurance at every step of the phase. And what I want to do is to make sure that there's no waste of time and no waste of effort in the process of developing module to lessen the towing and throwing of the materials, because that's one of the most frustrating part, the asking of permission, the asking of approval from the coordinators and the school heads, whether the module design is already acceptable or not, or even after at the end of the module has been already developed and written and ready to be disseminated to the students, and then the coordinators and the school administrators would like to see a last look at it, would still have, drastic changes or major changes in the module. And it's so frustrating for teachers out there to hear comments from our administrators that that the module has to be generally revised. That to me is unacceptable. Each phase of the development of module must be considered with quality assurance so that as our teachers progress on from one stage to another, the stage that they're going to graduate from, they believe that they already done and had been approved approved by the administrators and the coordinators. I have a lot of files to share to you today, but let us begin with my PowerPoint presentation, and I will navigate out from my PowerPoint to some examples of how a module is done, and I'll show you a little how I do it. All right, so a little bit of demonstration how I do it. This is my style, all right? This is my style of doing the modules to make it easy, not just for myself, but for the teachers of the schools that I handle. All right, so let me share this screen to you. All right. So the topic, sorry, why am I there? Let me go out first. All right. It's more of practical tips in preparing modules for distance and online learning. It's practical on my perspective because I've been doing this for quite some time, in fact, for more than a decade. And I've stuck with this kind of phase, this kind of stages in developing the modules because in my course of doing this, it's really is easy, and a lot of teachers find it easy for them to develop the modules. I think I started this way back in 2008. All right, that was with Filipino University. I came up with an easy way to come up with certain modules, and I loved it. I hope you get some information how you're gonna develop your own modules. Although we will not have the same designs, but I would like you to look into the process and the steps of how I do it, and the steps on which I believe that would save time and make sure that we're doing and progressing really well and with approval, okay, from the people that we need to seek approval from. So we're going to go through our sharing for this morning via the outline that I prepared for us. Of course, I will still start with, myths as usual. This is my flow of my presentation. We'll have a little bit of identification and busting of myths about module writing for distance and online learning. And then I'll present to you certain situations or published statements from an expert from a university, how they see the importance of the teacher, the role of the teacher in making sure that our students receive quality learning despite distance and online learning modalities. Then we'll proceed to discussion. I'll just breeze through some of the concepts so that we can zoom in on the steps, how I prepare and how I write modules. And then I'll have open forum where I entertain your questions. So if you have questions and clarifications along the way, please do not hesitate to key in your comments and your questions on the comment box below. And then I'll have my conclusions. It's a little bit of challenge for you guys out there. And let's begin. So I identified just 3 most common myths and misconceptions of teachers and students alike about distance education and online learning, and as regards module writing and the use of modules. So let's begin with statement number 1. Statement number 1 says that online lessons are impossibly difficult. Well, at the beginning, because it's a new modality for teachers and for students to engage in, it seems to be difficult. But in the long run, research showed that, in my experience too, as we move along and go along with the online learning thing and online teaching, it gets easier and it gets better. In fact, in my case, I have a lot of ideas that I would like to include in my presentations and online presentations, but then again, I am limited of my knowledge of some technologies that I still do not know how to use. That's why I'm requesting from my brothers and sisters in my confraternity if we could have training from IT experts or edtech experts from schools like University of Santo Tomas or from the La Salle University. The point there is that I know that a lot of teachers right now, when they started, it was really difficult, and they believe that preparing online lessons and for students as well, starting right now, online lessons and learning is rather difficult because it's a new modality. But again, based on research and based on my experience, as we progress and as we move on and keep on doing these things, it gets easier. In fact, I realized that I could be more creative in delivering my lessons, preparing my lessons, both distance, modular or online, to my students, and the possibilities are unlimited. If only, of course, I know lots of technology, but does not stop me from learning technology. That's why I think my laptop is open until 12 midnight, and then I open it around 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning because I keep on browsing over other applications and online modalities that I can use in order to improve my presentations, my online presentations, and my modules, of course. Therefore, online lessons are impossibly difficult is a myth, all right? It's only difficult at first, but it gets easier as you move along doing these things gradually in time, all right? Statement number 1 is, together, let's say, busted. All right. Let's now have statement number 2. I woke up in the wrong side of the bed. That's why my voice is a little bit boisterous, and my eye bags is bigger than it used to be. But nonetheless, I would like to give you a more lively conversation today. So statement number two, it says, a tight schedule is what's important for distance and online learning to work. A lot of teachers and a lot of parents believe that if we keep our students busy, then online learning and distance learning will be worthwhile, worth the time of the teacher's preparation and worth the time the students spending on online and spending independent modular learning. I would say no, all right? A lot of research done in Singapore show that they've been doing a lot of online and distance education and in Europe, based on research that it's not the tight schedule that makes distance learning or online learning effective and efficient, but it is based on the routines, all right? Routines set. There must be certain routines, like in a classroom, like in a classroom, in a face-to-face interaction, teachers come up with a certain routine because it allows our students to be able uh, to approximate the cognitive landscape demanded of them of the subject area. And routine from one subject to another differs. The routine of one subject differ from another subject because the routines that we come up with would be different from one subject to another because the nature of one subject is different from the other. Although we have what we call as general routines like flag ceremony for the Catholic schools and for the Christian schools, we have prayer before and after, exercise and all, morning exercise. During my time sa public school noon, nag-ano pa kami, nag-gardening before anything else, under the sun after the flag ceremony every morning. Meron kaming garden. So, ganun muna. So, I think ialiuna muna namin subjects. No? Anyway, the point is that the routine, not necessarily the routine placed in the schedule. So what's important is a routine first and then put that in the schedule. The tight schedule does not necessarily mean that we have to keep our students busy. It should be the quality of what they're doing, all right? And provides them certain focus of what they are supposed to do at every minute, at every hour, at every day of the school year or of the week, if we want a short-term perspective of how we plan our things. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, what's important is that we establish routine, and in online and distance learning, it is very important that in our modules, it is very clear that the routines are set. Like in a face-to-face interaction, there are routines, or there's a certain routine for a certain subject area. In like manner, when we create a module for distance education and for online learning, we must establish routine, and that's what we call as the elements of the modules, and that's kind of what we're going to discuss later on. And therefore, statement number two is, together we say, busted. All right. And now we proceed to the last myth, third myth, and let's read that together, people. Video teaching is the best option for distance and online learning. A lot of teachers, I've heard this from a lot of teachers say, sir, why are you not embedding videos on your PowerPoint presentation? I would say video presentation is rather effective, but I would like to make more impact on my students and for you people out there. There's a huge difference between a replay of a video, of a video teaching, than a live teaching. There's a feeling when I'm watching a live feed of say, a lecture, an online lecture that is fed online and it's live. There's a huge difference in feeling like an anticipation and a feeling like being part of the actual activity. While in the video, the recorded video teaching, there's a difference like, I could always replay this and I don't have to listen really well because I may not be able to understand it and I have a lot of things to do, so I can just replay it. The feeling of attention, the focus that we provide for live online teaching from a recorded video teaching is quite different. Although it is also an effective way to deliver, especially for homes that do not have good connectivity. Nonetheless, we still should have an opportunity for our students to be able to see our teachers teaching live at least once a week, perhaps, okay? So that they would feel that there's still a teacher existing and taking care of their needs. Okay, so I wouldn't say it's the best option. It is one of the options that makes distance online learning the best. All right, therefore, I would say the statement number three together, we say busted. And we're going to understand and explain these concepts and the answers to this as we move along with our discussion. All right, let's present an anecdotal record. Let's analyze this situation. Okay. This is from, I've been reading a lot about distance education since of course the Department of Education announced that they're going to be using distance education. I was one of those people who thought that that's hilarious. How can we go for online learning and online and distance education here in the Philippines when we have the poorest connectivity in the world? And well, probably not the poorest connectivity, but one of the poorest connectivity or Wi-Fi connection in the world. And I was one of those who would, viciously voice out my concern about this. But I say online is only one element of distance education. So distance education, in a sense, is good. And from this website, the Education Revolution and in the University of the People, they have this article about why teachers are important to society, and it tells us that no matter what the delivery of learning is, whether it's distance, whether it's online, whether it's face to face, the teacher's role in the success of our students is quite imperative. And they listed the following. All right. Teachers are arguably the most important members of our society. That's what they said. They give children purpose, set them up for success as citizens of our world, and inspire them a drive to do well and succeed in life. The children of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and teachers are that critical point that makes a child ready for their future. Why are teachers important? Let's count the ways. One, they bring change to a student's life, like right now. From face to face, a change had happened to online and distance learning, where our students now become more independent learners. They are forced to become more independent learners and less dependent on teacher. And also changes the perspective that the parents at home become now more active participants in their children's learning. So number one is right. Number two, they are role models, right? Because an online and distance learning, you cannot do online and distance learning without you being able to write modules, and prepare online presentations. And I think I already had shared my experience, the way I prepare for my online presentations and now for my modules. And so number two is right. We are role models, right? We cannot give distance education, quality distance education, online education to our students if we have not trained ourselves. Well, probably on the process of learning, but nonetheless, we are, showing progress that we are, modeling to the students how we can use technology in learning. Next, they provide the students the power of education. We do. The mere fact that we are there with they are there. We are there with our students in their journey towards being able to fulfill their basic education and graduate from basic education and attain a baccalaureate degree is actually a power to change their lives and be able to, sorry for that, it's itchy, be able to overcome poverty. Number four, through their guidance and dedication, I love this. Through their guidance and dedication, I know all of you teachers out there are so tired, but even if you complain a lot, I know you still continue in doing your jobs and your responsibilities. Not necessarily because it's your job, but because you know deep inside the recesses of your heart, you know that you love these children no matter what other people see, how you deal with them. But I believe that you have this, innermost dedication to help children, whether you admit it or not, and help develop and improve the country's economy through their students because we produce all types of professionals in society. And without us, society is nothing. We produce doctors, we produce and all other professionals. And on that note, it is very important for us teachers to be able to come up with a way, an easy way to develop modules, both for distance education and online education. And I hope this context provide us with an idea of our role in the lives of our students. And on that alone, it is very important for us to realize that we have to keep on improving ourselves and always innovating ourselves and being able to recreate ourselves, okay, and not remain history. Otherwise, we become relics of the past. Like that, we become relics of the past if we do not improve and innovate. All right, so that's our context for today. You can quote me on that, okay? Discussion, understanding practical ways how to prepare modules for distance and online learning. Simple questions before I demonstrate to you how I do it. I don't know if I still have time, but I only give it an hour. I still have more than 30 minutes, so I think we're still on time. So question number one is, what is a module and its importance to distance and online learning? Just, a graphic presentation of the importance of the module, all right? I would say that the learning module provides us with a way of teaching, and embedded in the module, the learning module would be, the teaching, and also how our students will be able to learn the information and the skills and the learning competencies as stated in, of course, one of the curriculum plan, which I believe has already been downloaded to us by Department of Education, and that will be our guide how we can develop our modules, and that would be the the minimum essential learning competencies, MELCs or MELCs, all right? And then from the curriculum, we are going to decide which pedagogical design is appropriate for every subject area. My example today would be on science, not because I love science. It's just I took biology first before I took education. All right, so my first love is actually science, and people in high school thought that I would end up becoming a medical doctor. Anyways, we can always change our mind as we go along with our lives. So pedagogical design is very specific to one subject to another. So the pedagogical design of language subject would be different from mathematics, from social studies, from TLE, and so on and so forth. A good example would be TLE, which utilizes CBLM or competency-based learning modules, and the design of which is coming from TESDA. And of course, we're going to use the Department of Education curriculum guide and put that in the CBLM element. So the pedagogical design helps us with the development of the modules. For as long as we are not able to identify the pedagogical design, it will be difficult for us to write the module. It is not like the face-to-face interaction that we can always modify our approach and the way we teach a lesson from, say, one lesson to another. In the module writing, it must be consistent. All right, it has to be consistent. The routines must be consistent. The routines there would be the elements of the instructional design. Next would be the instructional plan. We need to know the activities that have been placed in your module. What's the modality of the delivery? Is it independent learning? Is it online? And so on and so forth. We need to identify a particular lesson and a particular activity in the lesson and what mode it should be delivered. If we do not identify that, it will be difficult for us to write the module, no matter how good our pedagogical elements are. If we have not stated the modality on which a particular activity will be delivered to our students, it will be difficult for us to finish the module. All right. And finally, we have the supplementary materials. Like if it's an online, we create an add-on material, which would be called as online presentations. And the online presentations, I will not discuss that anymore here because I already had a presentation on last week on how to prepare, practical ways on how to prepare for online presentations. All right. So if you want to know more about supplementary materials for online materials, you would like, please go back and review my webinar on practical ways to prepare online presentations. That was last week. Okay. Also, supplementary materials would be some of the sheets, activity sheets that students will be using that should be embedded in your modules. Okay. Now, the modules, of course, would have what we call as achievement domains taxonomy. It requires that the learning activities must fit the learning outcomes. If the learning outcomes is, say, on the level of application, then the activities must be in the application level. And the level of which it was in taught to the students will also be the type of level that we are going to assess from our students. On that note, once our module are placed and we're done with all those that incorporate the curriculum plan, the pedagogical design, instructional plan, and supplementary materials, then it becomes now the learning plan for our students, helping them, develop their memory skills. Again, on that note, it would be nice for our students to have study skills and note-taking skills. You may want to go back on my webinar on note-taking skills, on how to help students, how to intervene with students with, study habits and writing deficits. There you go, study habits. So that's how important a learning module is. All the things that we want our students to acquire, the learning objectives from our learning plan, develop their memories about and information, get information from our modules, and have study habits, especially for independent learning, is all placed in the learning module. All right. Ang learning module po natin ay parang si teacher. Okay. So when I write the module, it's like I'm talking to the students. So the way I write my modules would be conversational, like when I'm talking to you right now, conversational still. All right. So that students feel like I'm still talking to them directly. Literacy skills, of course. All right. So a learning module, just to summarize our explanation of the question number one, a learning module is an organized collection of content presented together. All right. A learning module can support course goal, our goals, the learning competencies, the standards, a course objective, a subject, a concept, or a theme. All of this are put in one package, in one module, and each module consists of many lessons, okay? Depending on the curriculum plan that we created or the scope and sequence we created. I'll show you an example how I may make the scope and sequence. The scope and sequence will not be given to us by Department of Education, only the curriculum guide. And we need to be guided on how to make the scope and sequence. Otherwise, without the scope and sequence, it would be difficult for us to write the proper order or sequence of the lessons in the module. All right, let's now proceed to question number two. What are the basic parts of the module? Just to go through, I know you know already the basic parts of the module, but I've been hearing a lot from teachers that, modules lacking introduction, modules lacking the learning objectives, because they believe that the learning objectives and the learning competencies are only for teachers and the lesson plans. No, in the module, it is very important that we directly, explicitly communicate to our students what are expected of them to be able to acquire through the course of the use of the material or the module itself. So it is very important. Hindi po siya dapat implicit. Hindi po siya na basta makukuha niya, basahin nilang module. No, dapat sa simula pa lang, klarong-klaro na anong dapat nilang matutunan. All right. So the basic parts of the components of the learning module would be, of course, the introduction, that consists of description of the module with the explicit mention of target standards, LCs, and learning outcomes. LCs, learning competencies, and learning outcomes. It is very important. It's the most basic part of any module. It has to start with that. Okay? Pag wala po kayo niyan, nako, wag niyong sisihin ng mga bata kung blinded sila sa kanilang pag-aaral. All right? This is what we call as explicit instruction. The modules that we provide for our students, or we write, should be in the perspective of explicit instruction. Klarong-klaro kung ano ang dapat matutunan ng mga bata. And that should be the introduction. Next, preliminary activities. We prepare students mentally, emotionally to focus on learning the module. For some teachers, they're using the 5 E's. You can probably call it as engage, but I do not say that even if you use 4 A's or 5 E's, you usually use the word engage. I'm rather particular with the terms of the parts of the module. I would rather want the elements like the word engage for science to be more scientific in nature. So siguro bago ako magsimula, ang engage ko maging experimentation. Ganun. So you don't have to, because you're using the 5 E's, you're going to definitely be using the E, engage, as the elements there as your activity title. I'm just perspective. And the way I do it, I change those names, I transpose those labels into terms that are endemic to the subject area. Okay, I'll show it to you later on. And then we have input, of course, structured and direct presentation of information needed to realize the target standards. Importante, importante yan. These are the basic parts, okay? Then we have the formative activities. It could be collaborative efforts, individual or group, several activities that ranging from independent to collaborative exercises that allows learners to practice the LCs and LOs. And then we have the assessment and evaluation, all right? An ultimate activity that gauges the learner's learning acquisition and application of the target LCs and LO. So every after each lesson, there must be as an assessment and evaluation. And at the end of the module, a modular assessment, right? And then finally, we have summary and reflection. There should be an element in your module that allows students to summarize the information that they listen to over online learning and information that they did through independent study. All right, so these are the basic elements. You may want to, you can merge them together like input and formative assessment, summary and input and summary and reflection, something like that. All right. In my case, what I did is I incorporated input and summary and reflection. Okay, let's now proceed to the last question. And this is where after this, I will show you some examples and demonstrate how I do it. Just a mini demonstration though. All right. I have 20 minutes left. How does one design a module? Definitely, here's what I do. These are the 6 things that I remind myself when I prepare modules. Number 1, delivery and access. Should this be independent learning? Should this be online? If it's online, is it student collaborative activity or is it, teacher lecture online? Is it live? Is it video recorded? So I need to know in my scope and sequence, I need to identify exactly how I will deliver a particular part of the lesson. I need to identify that, okay? That should be controlled. How am I supposed to control the materials for my students? Would the students' responses be via online, via giving their comments via emoticons or via the comments box? Or is it they have activity sheets, even if it's online, they have activity sheets embedded in their module where while they're listening to the teacher lecture online, live online, they're going to take down notes using the activity sheets that are embedded in the modules. And that's what I did, all right? Gusto ko mga bata na habang nakikinig sa akin na nagla-live online, they have an activity sheet in the module that I prepared for them graphically and they take down notes para active pa rin ang pakikinig nila. So that's my way of involving my students. Otherwise, if I don't have activity sheets and I'm lecturing online, I feel like it's a one-way process. So I believe that on live online lecture or live online is more of a discussion perspective where while the teacher is giving input, the students are doing something else to take down notes of the important information that the teacher is imparting to them via online, right? And that's what I did. And that's what I usually do. And I need also interaction. The interaction is it independent? Would the activity be an individual activity for students? What time is that? And then how many minutes will it take? So I'm very particular with time. And we need to provide our students with certain time. And if it's there, it must be indicated in our module how many minutes so that they time themselves too. And if they cannot time themselves, at least the caregivers or the primary caregivers or the adults attending to them at home would also follow time. Why? Because I believe that critical thinking skills are developed via time limitations. Without time limit, our students will not think critically and creatively. Next would be symbolic or audiovisual characters, the medium, like I use icons. Icons that signal what activity they're supposed to embark on, and I'll show you just a sample of the things that I used symbolically in my modules. And next, social persons are created by the medium, like would it be live online? If it's live online, saan nila gagamitin yun? So siguro dapat gumamit ka ng mga other platforms for that. So pwedeng Viber, pwedeng FB Messenger. If using VIBAL suite, of course, you can use the chat room from VIBAL. All right. And you have also human machine interface. Of course, you can use the laptops, computer, and all other ed technology. So dapat nakalagay po doon anong gagamitin ng mga bata. All right. So these are the things that I should be reminded of. And finally, what are the phases of the module development? Isa lang po natin to go through it. Of course, we have the planning phase. The planning phase will be training of module developers. So in my case, in short, I believe that the teachers who have been assigned to write modules should be trained how to write modules. Nung nagsusulat po ang mga teachers po ng K-12 curriculum, especially for the modules of English and TLE, ako muna ang nag-train po sa kanila. Training ko muna sila sa central office. Tapos, sino po ang ginamit nila na format. So, it would be unfair for teachers to write modules if they have not been given training, all right? So the development phase now would be testing the design and scope and sequence. So dapat muna inaprobahan yung pedagogical design at scope and sequence. So hindi pwede magsulat sana ang mga bata o ang mga teachers po natin ng module na hindi aprobahan na tama ba ang pedagogical approach. Again, sabi ko nga natin, pwede pong sa face-to-face kasi pwedeng mabago-bago ng teacher ang kanyang strategies, ang kanyang approaches, but for the module development, dapat fix po ang kanyang pedagogical approach. It will be the backbone of the module. Pwede siya mabago-bago ng strategies within the approach or within each element of the pedagogical approach. And then the scope and sequence will show us ano ang pagkakasunod-sunod ng mga lessons, pagkakasunod-sunod ng mga activities. And then we'll have tryout and evaluation. I believe that first quarter, okay, unahing tapusin ang module ng first quarter para sa teacher nakafocus sa tryout and evaluation. Anong mga parts ng elements ng module na to ang successful, effective, ano ang hindi? Para pagdating sa second quarter, pwede na ma-modify ng teacher ang paggawa ng module for the second quarter. I'm sorry, that's what I do. Tinatapos ko ang buong module ng isang quarter bago ako pumunta sa second quarter. The second quarter, the results of my evaluation of the tryout of the first module will be the basis for me to improve my module writing for the second quarter. That's what we did with the Sisters of Mary. That's why marami nagreklamo, sir, parang every now and then we need to improve. Palagi po tayo nagsusolve. It's because it's a constant improvement of our modules. It's not constant. We need to improve it every now and then until we find something that works well for our students. In fact, module writing is a never-ending task. Para yung paglalaba ng damit. Pag nagamit mo yung damit, hindi mo sabihin na ulit-ulitin mo na siya, hindi mo na kailangan laban. Kaya mo siyang laban ulit para, maggamit mo siya ulit. So it's kind of the same with the module writing. And finally, we have editing and revising. And then of course, it's what we call as enlisting and content language experts. Titingnan na ngayon, pag finalize natin yan, so ibig sabihin, yung ginamit nyo for this first quarter, kung next year po ay modular, I believe next year, school year, I believe po dapat blended learning pa rin tayo, may face-to-face at meron pa rin independent learning at saka online. Pwede na po natin gamitin to finalize yung ginawa natin this year for next year. So next year, mas improve na po ang ating modules. Alright? Based on the triad, of course. And then we have publication and dissemination. I will not talk about publication and dissemination, so perhaps that would be tedious for your part. Dapat may mga editors, language editors and content editors. Let me focus more on, nandun po yung ensuring copyrights para malaman po natin na wala po mga plagiarized information. Kaya masarap magsulat po ng science at saka math kasi yan sila mga factual subjects. Kasi lahat ng mga facts nila ay all over the world at wala pong plagiarism. Mapiplagiarize lang po siguro yung mga examples sa mga pictures, yun po ang titingnan natin sa mathematics. Dapat hindi, yung mga examples at saka mga pictures must be contextualized and must be as much possible original, written by the writer. Okay? So let's have an example of the phases that we have. Phase 1 po muna, sabi nga natin, extract the content performance standards, expected learning outcomes, topic, and context from the DepEd CGs and fill in the gaps if any. So there's a possibility po na ito po ang aking sample matrix of how to cut and paste lang po. Buksan nyo po ang MELCs, copy and paste po ang outcomes, ang content standards and performance standards and topic and then task. Pag nagawa nyo po ito, ma-observe nyo po na may mga information na hindi na lang nabigay. Like, Hindi lahat mayroong outcomes. Hindi lahat mayroong performance standards. Hindi lahat mayroong topic at saka context. Hindi lahat mayroong task. So what do we do? So you fill in. Okay, fill in. So pag nagawa nyo na po ito nang gagawin nyo po. Phase 2, map out expected learning outcomes. So na-fill in yung mga blanco na yon. Ang susunod na gawin nyo ay map out expected learning outcomes. So extraction ulit. From phase 1, extract nyo po yung mga learning outcomes. Halimbawa po, araling palipunan. Ito na po. Para makita nyo ano ang dapat magawa ng mga bata. Dahil sa anong dapat magawa ng bata, yan po dapat ang core ng paggawa ng module. Minsan kasi ang module po natin, puro lang information. Think like TLE. Ang TLE kasi may focus kung ano ang dapat na skill na magawa ng bata o ma-perform ng bata. Yun yung pong sinasabi natin na learning outcomes. Kaya nga po ang TLE module writing phase, dapat ma-imbibe po ng mga phases ng other subject area. Kasi skill-based po talaga sila. While other subject area focus more on information. Kasi nga, nasanay tayo na information-based ang paggawa, pag-deliver ng ating mga lessons. But in the modules po, it's always on the learning. We focus more on the learning outcomes. So, bakit ko po yun ng grade 7 sa baba? Because we call it as foundation. So, hindi pwedeng magbigay ng learning outcomes sa grade 7, sa grade 8 na hindi nasuportahan ng grade 7. Ibig sabihin, the grade 7 learning outcomes are foundation for higher forms of learning outcomes. They progress from one grade level to another higher grade level. So titingnan na po natin kung nagsusupport ang mga nagawa ng bata sa grade 7, sa grade 8, grade 9, and grade 10. Halimbawa, nakalagay sa quarter 4 ng grade 10, nakalagay dito, nakagagawa ng case study. Ano ba dapat ang paggawa ng case study? Ayun po ma'am, profiling, importante po yung skill na yun, nasa grade 7 po. Paggawa ng case analysis po, nasa grade 8 po. Pagkagawa po ng mga panayam, nasa grade 9 po. So, all other skills na kailangan ng bata sa grade 10 na ibigay na sa grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, hindi na lang sumulpot siya bigla sa grade 10. Okay? So, dapat klaro po ito. There are cases na sa MELCs at saka sa curriculum guide ng DepEd, may mga quarters na hindi nabigay ang learning outcome. So, tayo na lang po ang maglalagay po nun. So, in that case po, kung kayo pong naglagay, lagyan nyo po ng ibang kulay. Hindi ko lang po nalagyan ng ibang kulay. All right. So once you have that, you are now ready for phase 3. There should be letter A. Create the scope and sequence from the instructional plan. So dapat mahagawa na kayo ng scope and sequence. Ito ba ginagawa kong scope and sequence? Yan. So kitang-kita, this is the ito po ang mga modules. Okay? Module 1 is all about katangiang physical ng ASHA. Okay, yan. That's 3 weeks. Katangian ng likas na yaman ng ASHA, week 4 and 5. Katangiang yamang tao, that's weeks. So, nandito po yung assessment forms, WW, and so on, so forth. So, klaro po ang dapat magawa ng module ng teacher sa Araling Palipunan ng grade 7. So, there are 3 modules na dapat magawa ng grade 7. Alright? Sampulan po natin. Okay? So, let's have an example. I'll focus on science. Okay. So, mini demonstration. Punta po tayo. Labas muna tayo dito ha. Mag-navigate po tayo outside. I'll show to you this. Alright. This is a sample of scope and sequence na in-extract ko po. Na-extract ko na po sa curriculum guide na tsaka sa learning outcomes ng Department of Education. So ito po ay Sample Distance Education Curriculum Plan for Grade 4 Science Quarter 1. Ako po ito. And then ito po ang target learning, content standards, performance standards, at saka learning outcomes. Nilalagay ko na dito, yan po lahat ay galing po sa Department of Education. Kaya lang po, ito pong part na to, nilalagay ko ngayon ng red dahil hindi po yan nabigay. Okay? Ako na lang po nag-isip na create an infomercial about how to organize materials based on their properties, usefulness, and harmfulness. So ito na lang po ang outcomes na papagawa ko sa mga bata. Kasi pag wala pa akong learning outcomes, mahirapan po ako sa pag-isip kung ano ang tamang activities para sa performance tasks ng mga bata, sa PT po ng mga bata. Nilagyan ko siya ng red dahil ibig sabihin, siguro nakaligtaan ng Department of Education ang maglagay ng learning outcomes for grade 4, quarter 1 ng science. So ako na lang po naglagay. Alangan maghintay kayo sa Department of Education. So gawa nyo na lang paraan na dapat nakakonekta sa content standards at performance standards. Alright? So ito ngayon kaya lang po, ang lesson po, isa lang po ang module ng quarter 1 ng science. It's all about physical and chemical properties or properties of matter. So ang lesson niya ay there are 4 lessons. Okay, lesson 1 will be on classified materials based on the ability to absorb water flow so it can undergo decay. Ito po ay mga learning outcomes po. Okay? Itong mga week na po ito, galing po yan sa DepEd. So sinunod ko lang po. Ang ginamit ko po na learning, the pedagogical elements po ay yung inquiry-based science approach. So ang elements po ng science inquiry-based approach as a pedagogical element of my module would be starting with experimentation, then discussion, cooperative interaction, then performance evaluation. Ito po sinunod ko. Okay? So, yung mga learning competencies ng galing sa DepEd, yung most essential, I broke it down into questions. Bakit po? Kasi kailangan po sa inquiry-based science approach, pedagogical approach, ay itatranspose ang mga competencies, learning competencies, break down it into smaller units in question format. And the question format should be the basis for the development of the modules and the lessons. Bakit po? Kasi nga, inquiry-based. We're teaching our students to think about questions and look for the answer to the questions via experimentation using the scientific method. Yan po ginamit ko po kasi yun po ang, I believe na mas madaling pedagogical approach para ang mga bata mag-isip in scientific method perspective. Okay, hindi ko siya pwedeng gamitin ng literature, grammar, kasi hindi naman to language. Otherwise, maging language po siya. Although nag-embed ako ng language element for study habits. Okay, nakalagay po kanina sa introduction natin, the module must embed study habits and learning styles para makasama po sa development ng mindset ng bata. Alright? From this scope and sequence instructional plans, okay, i-extract ko siya ngayon sa paggawa na ng module. Alright? Punta po tayo. Stop po tayo dito. Ito po siya ito po ay first quarter. So sorry po, I'm just excited kasi nga, pag nerd siguro ako, no? I'm such a nerd. Pag ganito po kasi talagang parang, this is my playground. Iwan mo lang ako na may kape, tapos ibigay mo sa akin ng curriculum. I will make all the scope and sequence for you. Of course, I will research on it thoroughly. Anyway, ito po ay first quarter. So bago ka gumawa, mag-layout na ng module mo, dapat na abrobahan mo muna ito sa inyong coordinator. Bakit po? Nakalagay dito, experimentation, 30 minutes, computer-based. Paano sinabi ng teacher ng inyong coordinator? No, huwag ka muna mag-computer-based dyan. Mag-lecture ka dyan. Aprubahan muna kung okay ang mode of delivery. Kasi the mode of delivery for a particular element of your module, pag sinulat mo siya, at sinabi ng teacher ng coordinator o kanyang principal ninyo ay hindi, nagsulat ka na, pagod ka na, gumawa ka na ng online presentation. Ano ba naman yan? So dapat dito pa lang approve na. This becomes your blueprint. Blueprint on how your modules will be evaluated. So pag present na at in-evaluate ng module mo, evaluate na approve. So, computer-based po, computer pala to dapat. So, tingnan natin kung ano ang module mo. Dapat nakalagay doon na computer talaga siya. So, nakalagay dito discussion na computer siya independent. Dapat nakalagay independent. So, pag ito ay naprobahan na po, madali na po isulat. Extra ka lang ng extra at saka detail ng detail. So, once, say, naprobahan na po ito ng inyong coordinator, ng inyong principal po, there's no wala na po kayong lahat ng detalye sa paggawa ng modules, you are all set. Okay? So, well-guided po ang paggawa ng inyong module. So, labas po tayo doon, punta tayo ngayon sa ating module na po. Module sample. There you go. So, ito na po ang aking module sample. Mitch, kita po ba? Sige, kita po yan. Yes. So, under the title, nakalagay po introduction po natin. Kasama sa title ng introduction po natin, the title of I'm sorry, I'm very particular to the color blue. At sa Sister sa Mary, blue po ang colors namin, kaya I'm very particular with blue. So, the title of the module is Properties and Changes of Materials or Matter. grade level 4, quarter 1, schedule, sorry, dapat nakabold to. Schedule Monday to Friday, and time po niya ay 9 a.m. to 9:50 a.m. Hypothetical lang po ha, hypothetical lang po namin. 50 minutes po ito sa grade 4. According to Department of Education, 50 minutes po siya. So I'll just put there, open, close, parenthesis, 50 minutes. There we go. Then introduction. Nakalagay sa introduction statement kung ano dapat ano ang expected from them. In this module, you are expected to meet the following standards and be able to accomplish the learning outcome. Parang nagipag-usap ka lang sa bata. So, content standards, ito po ay hindi ko muna ginawa para po tayo. So, ngayon, itatranspose ka ng content standards. Ilalagay mo naman, not the learners. You are expected to demonstrate understanding of. Then, palitan mo ulit. Wag natin should na, must be able to, and then, okay. Okay na siya. Alright? So, parang may pag-usap lang sa back. So, you are expected to demonstrate understanding of groupings, different materials, changes in the materials, you must be able to, and then learning outcomes at the end. At the end of the lessons, at the end of the module, you are expected to be able to create an infomercial about how to organize materials based on their properties, usefulness, and harmfulness. All right? Mayroon po akong elements introduction how to use this module, especially for those. Bakit po? Para nakalagay po nun kanina na considerations, diba? Visuals, icons. So dapat pag nakita ng bata yung icon, alam niya kung anong element na yun. All right? So, how to use this material. This module consists of 4 lessons with corresponding summative tests at the end to gauge how well you are learning and progressing through the learning activities. Each lesson consists of the following parts of their icons visually guide and prepare you on the nature of the activity you are about to take on. Lesson overview. This serves, so ganun na lang po, hindi ko na pa i-detail ko kasi wala na po akong oras. Next, we have experimentation. Sabi ko ito yung elements na pinoprobahan. Yung kanina yung scope and sequence, ito na po siya, experimentation. Pero dapat ilagay sa module, sa opener po ninyo, ano yung mga icons na yon at what are those activities for to inform the students and the parents. Okay? Discussion, independent study, collaboration. So pag nakita ang icon, collaboration po yun. And then performance evaluation, checklist na ginilagay ko na icon. And then summative assessment, yan po siya. And then kasama po doon sa inyong paggawa ng modules, isang module, nandun po yung dapat ng schedule. Alright? Schedule of learning activities. For your guidance, the following will be the list of lessons and activities that you will have to accomplish based on schedule and the mode for which they are to be learned. Para guided na lang bata. Diba? So, week 1, classify lesson on classify materials based on ability to serve water, float, sink, and undergo decay. So, Monday, topics niya, Monday and Tuesday, activity niya, time allotment, mode of learning, tapos anong page yon sa learning materials. Okay? Naglagay po ako sa Friday ng summative assessment, 15 minutes online assessment. Ako po yun. Okay? So if you would like to know more about online assessment, nagkaroon na po tayo ng training on developing online assessment. So you may want to browse over back to the videos with VIBAL webinars the previous weeks about developing and creating online assessments para makita nyo po paano ginagawa po yan. Alright? Bakit po kailangan po? Dahil nga nakalagay sa ating Depth Order number 8 series of 2021 that at the end of every lesson, the students must be evaluated as to how well they have learned, acquired the learning competencies. So may learning competency number 1 po tayo, tapos breakdown po natin into question format. And then ang ating coverage po ng ating summative test 1 ay topic 1 and topic 2. Klaro sa bata. So, sabihin niya bata, ay kailangan ko makinig kasi nga pagdating sa Friday, summative test na siya. Online pa to, time pa siya. Alright? Then week, Bisaya di ay, pastilan. Week 2 and 3. So, learning competency, describe changes in solid materials. Tapos ito po ang kanya mga topics ulit. Transposed into question forms. Ito po yung kanya mga activities ulit. time allotment po, ano yung mode of learning, tapos anong gagamitin na pages sa learning module. Alright? And then at the end, Friday po, 2 weeks po ito. On the last Friday, summative test po, ang kanyang coverage ay topics 3, 4, and 5. Summative test 2, 50 minutes, online assessment. So, ang sinasabi ko sa module na to, pag gumawa po talaga ako, klarong-klaro ang schedule. Binigay ko sa bata ang schedule na for the whole quarter, kita ng mga magulang, at wala silang, merong guided sila as to how they will go about the use of the material, be it independent or module. Nakalagay naman po sa mode of learning kung ito po ay independent, online, or collaborative. Okay? So let's proceed to my sample module. So halimbawa, ginawa ko ng sample po ang quarter 1, week 1. So lesson overview, ayun na po, naka-icon based po siya. Ganito po ang pagkakaturo ko sa pagsusulat ng module sa mga module writers na sa central office during the K-12 thing. Okay? So lesson overview, we have this week, you will learn how to classify materials based on their ability to absorb water from underground. Specifically, you are expected to meet the following learning objectives and their corresponding inquiries. Learning competency, classifying. Okay, inquiries, what are the? So ito po siya. Bakit ito po ang dapat niyang masagot sa lesson na to? Guided siya. The inquiry-based science approach is the use of questions that give students focus on ano ba dapat ang mahanap pong sagot sa lesson. Alright? Experimentation, dahil online po ito, your teacher will demonstrate practical ways to conduct home experiments to identify the properties of matter. So, dapat nakalagay po yun. So, ito po ay dapat, kulang po ng element, nakalagay po sa ating, one of the principles of module writing, ilagay po ang minutes. Ito po ay 30 minutes. Tapos, ilalagay po natin, ito po ay live, kung nakalagay po doon ay live online teacher demonstration. Guided po si bata at saka sa mga bata at saka parents sa anong mode ng delivery nito. And then discussion po ulit, we have 20 minutes. Live online teacher presentation. Okay? Tapos nakalagay po dito dahil nga ako po ay medyo may very critical focus sa pag-develop ng study skills ng mga bata in all subject area. So dito po sa live online teacher presentation po after the demonstration, listen as your teacher explains the different properties of matter. While your teacher is discussing, take down the most important information presented using the graphic organizer below. So binigyan ko na sila ng graphic organizer para habang nakikinig sila kay teacher, nagsusulat na sila na nandun sa kanilang module na nakikinig sila kay teacher, may ginagawa. So active ang kanilang learning. At the same time, you are developing the study habits and note-taking skills of your students while they're at home. Okay? Ito po ay nakalagay sa kanilang module habang ang teacher nag-present sa online. And then, we have independent study. That would be 50 minutes. Okay? 50 minutes. That would be independent modular learning. So read the information below about properties of matter, make an outline and summary after reading the information. Again, importante sa akin na may study skills na tinuturo sa bata kahit anong subject pa yan. So independent study, ito yung information that I prepared. So physical and chemical properties of matter. Tapos information niya, nakalagay na po information niya. And then my sources, of course. And then I have here a space for students to make an outline of the reading selection. And then the summary of the reading selection. Para po, at the end of the, yung kanilang pag-aaral ng independent study, guided pa rin. At alam ng mga magulang kung ano dapat ma-accomplish nila. Alright? Sir, paano po ituturo ang outline na-outline po yan? Well, dapat nakipag-coordinate ka sa English or you already had a profile of literacy level of your students na tinuruan na sila ng outline. Outlining, I think, is already taught in grade 3 and 4, English. And Filipino, of course. Then collaboration, nakalagay dito, you will be divided into 8 groups. Each group has a job card that contains the procedures to follow and the questions. This is for 50 minutes. Ito po ay live online chat or video conferencing with group mates. With the group. There you go. All right. So nakalagay na po dito, you will generally be finding out the answers to the following questions. What are the general characteristics of matter? Do all the matters possess the characteristics of why do you say so? And then group 1, itong gagawin nila. All right. Nakalagay na procedure and questions. Bakit po questions ulit? Kasi nga ang ating ginamit na pedagogical approach ay science inquiry approach or inquiry-based science approach. At then performance evaluation po, based on ito yung pag-usapan nila, dapat nakalagay po dito na discuss with your group how you will find out the properties of the following materials, perform your experiments, and record them appropriately, including the date, time, procedure, observation, and results of each experiment. Below is the format of the experiment recording sheet. So you have date, ano yung experiment, ano yung time, procedure, observation, and results. So ito yung mga dapat nilang i-experiment as a group. Prepare the materials listed on the table that follows and set them on the desk in front of the class. Prepare, dapat hindi na class, in front of, dapat ma-edit ko yan, siya in front of the class. Dapat, kasi i-demonstrate nila online to. Pwedeng recorded na lang. Prepare also the table in manila paper or in a slideshow. Make your experiments to identify their properties. Complete the table with their descriptions. Do not forget to take pictures and short videos of your experiments. This will be shown and submitted after your group presentation. Ayan. Yung sample po ng template na kailangan nilang masubmit or when you present the results of their experiments on Thursday. Summative po, this would be online. This is 50 minutes. This is online assessment. All right. Instructions lang. Kasi syempre, alang ilagay mo dito mga tanong kasi online nga dapat para hindi makita ng mga bata ang sagot already. Your teacher will provide you with a 25-item test about the properties of matter and ways to find out these properties. You will only be given 30 minutes to finish the online test. Just click the letter of your choice and click submit once you have finished. Done with lesson 1 for first module of the part 1 of science. All right. So let me, if you want a copy of this sample module that I created, just request from VIBAL. And then ang gagawin ko po ay, hindi pa ito maayos sa sample lang po ito ha. So para po kung gusto niyo makita lang, magkaroon kayo ng kopya. So you just request from my mediators. I will provide them with a copy of this. Kasama rin po yung scope and sequence. Again, hindi ko talaga thoroughly made ang ibang lessons kasi lesson 1 lang po ang nagawang ko ng sample. All right, let me go back to my PowerPoint presentation. All right, so let's just analyze my mini demonstration. It has a title, anong grade level niya, anong schedule niya, at saka anong time niya. And then, andun po yung ating introduction. Importante po, ulitin ko po, importante po na nakalagay explicitly ang content standards and performance standards and learning outcomes. I've been hearing a lot of teachers saying, sir, hindi po namin nilagay yan kasi nasa lesson plan po namin at saka nasa teacher's guide. No, sa module po nakalagay po din yan sa mga bata para parehas kayo ng wavelength. Alright? Anyway, that's required. Tapos how to use this module, I would like to make a juxtapositioning that the parts of my module for science I uses the 5 E's. So yung ating experiment po ay engage, ang discussion po ay explore, ang ating independent study po ay explain, and ating collaboration po ay elaborate, tapos ang performance evaluation sa summative assessment ay evaluate. So actually when I use the inquiry science-based approach, pedagogical elements, yung experiment, discuss, independent study, collaborate, performance evaluation, summative assessment, hindi ko na ginamit yung engage, explore. So I said that I'll be using the 5 E's, pero gumamit ako ng terms na pang science. Yung ibang teachers kasi ginagawa nila, they retain the engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. Para sa akin kasi hindi siya umaakma sa nature ng subject. All the elements of a particular module of a particular subject area must be must be using terms that would allow students to think in that perspective of the subject area. So halimbawa sa engage, pwedeng gawin po dito ay problem solving. Kung mathematics po yan. Kung explore ay, I don't know, hindi ako masyadong sa mathematics. So explain would be perhaps teacher discussion. Elaborate would be exercise, equation exercise, I think, something like that. Evaluate would be perhaps performance evaluation, then it's a summative assessment. My point here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the 5 E's or any pedagogical approach like the 4 A's that you use, transpose that into terms that allow students to think in that subject area. And it must be consistently used all throughout your lessons in the module. All right? Sir, tanong po, paano namin malalaman kung ilang modules sa isang quarter nandun po sa curriculum guide na pinadala po sa atin ng Department of Education? It just so happened po sa quarter 1 po ng grade 4, isa lang po ang lesson, which is all about properties of matter. Tapos nag-iba lang po mga lessons niya within it. So isa lang po ang, meron pong ganun. Meron naman pong kagaya ng mathematics na 2 modules or araling palipunan, 4 na modules, 3 modules sa isang quarter. Depende po sa pagkakagawa ng curriculum guide. So kung anong binigay po sa atin ng curriculum guide ng Department of Education, we transpose that to scope and sequence. Yun ang pakita ko po sa inyo. The scope and sequence po dapat nakalagay doon kung on mode, pedagogical approach, ano po ang kanyang mode of delivery, time elements, and so on and so forth, para guided ka sa paggawa. Yun muna ang ipapaprove mo para pag aprobado na po yung blueprint nyo, which is your scope and sequence, yun na pang gagawin ninyong module. Alright, on that note, I would like to entertain questions now and clarifications for those who have questions out there. So, Mitch, do I have questions?
Yes, well, Brother Ricky, we have some questions here from our viewers. The first one is from Miss Ford Celeste Dumas. Good morning po. I believe that in writing learning modules, content matters most. Question po, do we really have to strictly follow a specific learning module format?
Yes, ma'am. For consistency of writing and for routine, one of the elements of modules to help our students focus more on learning would be the idea of routines. And the routines in the modules would be the strictly following the elements, the format of the module. So, kailangan po munang establish po natin yung elements. So, pipili muna kayo talaga ng pedagogical approach and the element for the writing of the modules. Kasama na po doon yung input. Okay, kung saan po nakalagay, dapat ang inyong pipiliin na pedagogical approach, meron po pa rin nakalagay na input. I do not believe that a good pedagogical approach would be without any input. So dapat talaga may input. So pumili po kayo ng tamang pedagogical approach. For the public schools, Department of Education pong nagbigay ng pedagogical approach kasi nagbigay po sila ng sample exemplars. That's how I was explained na may exemplars po silang pinadala sa field at samples po ng mga modules. So meron na po kayong mga elements na susundin. And very important po kasi na ang paglagay po ng content po ay nakalagay ay dapat pasok po sa learning competencies and the level of the learning competencies. That's why ang format ko po sa paggawa talaga ng modules, kahit hindi science po, I transpose always the learning competencies into questions. Nakita niyo po ako sa dati kung paano ako gumawa ng online materials. I break down the topic, the learning competency, into smaller units via questions. And this question somehow would be answered through the course of the online material or presentation that I provide. So ganun din po ako sa paggawa ng modules via the questions that I broke down from the learning competencies. Guided po ngayon ng mga bata to acquire the learning competency. At saka hindi po ako maglalagay ng informasyon na hindi naman po nakapasok sa learning competencies. Marami po kasing gustong ipasok ang mga teacher na information sa mga bata. Ang para sa akin po kasi ay, are they necessary, essential to the acquisition of the learning competencies? If yes, then ilagay mo doon. Tapos maglagay ka ng question. Ngayon kung hindi naman po, I think pwede mo ilagay po yun sa additional information or for independent study, pero huwag sana sa core ng content ng inyong module. Otherwise, ang dami-dami nyong isusulat, ang dami-dami nyong wala nang katapusan ang ilalagay nyo doon. At ang mga bata mahirapan. Remember, dapat mas focus sa modular instruction kasi at saka sa online instruction po. Dapat focus po sa information na kailangan lang makuha ng bata. Hindi po yan kagaya ng face-to-face interaction na pwedeng si teacher magbigay ng mga other examples ng extension, okay, ng mga extension information. Kasi nga, pwede mo ma-explain. Pero kasi kung ilalagay mo yan sa libro, sa module po ninyo, na meron ka mga extension information, sabi ng mga bata, ang naguguluhan ako, nawawala ang attention ng bata sa impormasyon na dapat niyang bigyan ng focus. Alright? So thank you very much. So my answer is you must really have a specific element for the delivery of the content in your modules, be it online or modular. Thank you.
Next question po, Brother Ricky, is from Mr. Ernie Ronel Tirol. What kind of activities do you suggest, sir, that we should include in our modules? Most of the time, it is difficult to come up with an activity that is going to be both challenging and fun.
Again.
What kind of activities do you suggest, sir, that we should include in our modules? Most of the time, it is difficult to come up with an activity that is going to be both challenging and fun.
Okay. As much as I would like to say it must be fun for our students, but the first consideration you need to think about the activity is, does it fit the learning competency? Kung nakalagay sa learning competency ay classify, dapat pang-classify po mga activities natin. Kung nakalagay ay explain, dapat explain. So pwede kang nakamatch po yung activities sa mga kung ano yung doable words doon sa learning competencies. Sometimes kasi a lot of teachers think that it should be fun and always fun for our students. Siguro sa live online, for online learning po, pwede ka magpasok ng mga graphic presentation to make your presentation more exciting, more interesting for your students. But sa modules kasi mahirap po magawa ng mga ganong fun and all. What I believe it's appropriate to the learning competencies and realizes the learning competencies. If it's fun, perhaps kailangan mo muna mag-profile ng interest ng mga bata. So kung ano po ang laman, ano pong examples ninyo sa inyong mga modules, dun po siguro magkakaroon ng konting fun sa bata. Hindi yung kailangan talaga na lahat ng activities ng bata at exercises ay fun. The context perhaps would be interesting for your students. Dapat ang gamit po natin ay yung interest, ang profile po ng bata. So we have a webinar this week about profiling students. So doon po makinig po kayo kung paano ginagamit ang profiling ng students or profile of student profiles po in helping us in developing our modules by looking at students' interests. Unfortunately, nakagawa na po tayo ng mga modules. Alam ko pong nakagawa po na tayo ng mga modules at tayo po ay wala pa pong profile ng mga estudyante. So hindi natin alam ano pong mga interest nila. Mga examples ko ba ay tungkol sa mga Korean telenovela, mga cartoons, animations and all, manga, I do not know. So ang examples ko dito would be what I think would interest students. Yan po ang problema ng mga teachers na develop ng modules because they only have a hypothetical idea of what would interest students. Now, if you want really a clear, concrete basis of coming up with an example or exercises that interest our students, it's very important for us to profile our students, and it should have been done before the modules have been developed. So again, na-late lang siguro kami sa VIBAL sa pagbigay po ng student profiling, pero this week po ay meron po kaming topic on student profiling. So I hope you watch it and learn how powerful student profiling in module development. Thank you very much po.
Last question po, Brother Ricky, is from Mr. Albert Lagrimas. What kind of pedagogical approach you think best in the current situation of our public schools?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if you're gonna agree with me, but based on my experience for the past years in teaching its subject, for mathematics, the best pedagogical backbone approach for modular development for distance education and online learning would be problem-based approach. Okay, problem-based approach. I think it has not changed. It has always been problem-based approach. We always start with a problem. I think we start our lesson with a problem, and then the learning competency is delivered via a holistic problem, a big problem that students will have to learn how to solve, and then step by step ang pagtuturo ng teacher hanggang magkaroon ng exercises, and then independent exercise, collaborative independent hanggang sa magkaroon ng assessment. That's for mathematics. For science, ang nakita po namin na very interesting for students would be ito po yung inquiry-based science approach. For languages po, for Filipino and English, we have, of course, binigay po ng Department of Education, since I'm also one of the consultants of that, that would be literature-based language approach, that we start with literature, and then we go for comprehension. After comprehension, we have skills. After skills, we have grammar, and then after grammar, we have representing and composition. So that. And then for social science or limpalipunan, ang maganda po na ginamit na approach po ay social inquiry approach. Okay? Yung pagbibigay po ng social issues muna, tapos yun po ang springboard para pag-usapan po. So nag-iisip si teacher kung ano mga social issue that would, be relevant for students to listen to the lesson. Okay? For TLE po, ang ginamit po ay skills-based. That's still from TESDA. CBLM po ang gamit po natin, and it works kasi focus na focus talaga. Ang bibigay lang information ay yung pang skills lang talaga. For ano pa bang wala pa, edukasyon sa pagpapakatao ay reflective learning approach po ang nakita po namin na appropriate. All right, if you want to know more about those approaches, you may just browse them over the net. Or better yet, you read the curriculum guide of the Department of Education. Nandun po nakalagay ang mga pedagogical approaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Ricky. That's all the questions that we have for now. Of course, we can proceed po to your last reminders to our viewers.
All right. Thank you very much, Mitch. Thank you very much for, again, these are all my experiences and how I guide the schools that I handle in developing their materials. And since 2015, I have been encouraging the schools like Sisters of Mary to move towards veer away from textbooks to more modular, because I believe that the focus of modular instruction is to help students become more independent. While with the textbooks, it's difficult for our teachers to make our students become more independent because it lacks certain activities for varying degrees of, mental development and mental capacity development, and the level of which the students are able to accomplish the activities. By the modular approach, be it distance education or online or independent, we are able to help to transfer most of the responsibility of learning from the teacher to the students and to the parents, especially right now that our students are learning at home. So I would like to leave you with the following information. So the following attributes make the difference between a good teacher and a truly great teacher who becomes an inspiration to their students. I believe that makalalaman po pa rin ng mga bata kahit distance education, online education po, na magaling po ang teacher natin via the following. 1, compassion. Sa online kasi si teacher dapat palaging pleasing personality, nakangiti, conversational approach. Tapos sa module language po natin, dapat personal po, conversational. You are now ready to, after accomplishing the activity, congratulations, you're done with the lesson 1 of this module. You are now ready to proceed to may mga ganun na ang discussion po is to make the students ang language na ginamit sa module, be it modular or online, ay conversational at parang you really care for their learning. Passion for learning and learners, because of course, oras mo sa pag-develop ng mga modules na yan, hindi ba yan enough evidence of passion for learning and our learners? Next, understanding why, because we are finding ways to deliver our lessons in various modalities. And we're trying to understand whether it will be effective for our students or not. But again, ladies and gentlemen, teachers out there, it is very important that we don't rely so much on trial and error. That's why I am encouraging you to do diagnosis. That's why this week is all about topics on diagnosing, and one of which would be yesterday I talked about diagnosing literacy, the comprehension of our students. Why? Because our students will be independently reading the materials at home, and it's very important that we would know whether our students have a certain level of proficiency in reading and writing so that they can independently use these materials. Because if our students are not yet that proficient in reading and writing, then no matter how good our materials, our modules, no matter how good we develop our modules, it's nothing. So profile po muna natin ng mga bata natin. Okay? So that's part of understanding. Patience, because it's a learning process. Hindi pa natin alam. Hindi natin kabisado pa ang distance education sa Pilipinas at online. Ako din, hindi ko pa kabisado kasi nga blended pa dati. Ito kasi talaga naging pure distance education and pure online. So bago pa rin po sa akin. So somehow one of the challenges that we are going to face would be how to get feedback, whether what we did, what we prepared for our students, and with the help of our parents, we're actually efficient and effective for the learning of our students. Be patient, okay? Be patient. Ability to be a role model. I think right now we are learning how to use cell phones as part of our instructional educational technology tools, and the laptops and online platforms and even social media. And before we were not using this platform for learning, and now we are becoming models of how to use these platforms for learning. And of course, communication across generations and cultures. Whether we like it or not, we are now somehow bridging the gap between our generation and the generation of our students. Our students' generation is more of technology, and now teachers like us are now forced, whether we like it or not, to learn this technology to be able to meet our students halfway. And finally, willingness to put in the effort. I think a lot of teachers out there from 1 to 6 are their characteristics of 1 to 6 are shown via the effort that they have given into the materials that they have prepared for us. And that alone, I would say, is something that we need to thank our teachers for. And a lot of people out there believe that online teaching and distance education is easy. I tell you, it's not. It is very tedious. It is one of the most demanding modality of learning and teaching and learning for teachers in the Philippines. Finally, printed materials remain important component in most distance education courses. Ibig sabihin, kahit nag-online pa siya, meron pa rin sa module niya nakasulat anong gagawin niya. I'm very particular in that. Na kahit naka-online siya, may ginagamit pa rin niya ang module. Alright? Hindi dapat kahit nag-online na siya o nag-collaborative siya, hindi pa rin nagagamit ang module. Ginagamit pa rin ang printed materials kasi dapat it should guide them on what they're supposed to be doing. Alright? And it will also serve as recording of what they've been doing. So para siyang recording of the order of the things that students should be able to accomplish in a particular lesson. And then teachers must be flexible, innovative, and creative, as dealing with the distance learning presents challenges different from that of traditional classroom. So we need as teachers to be flexible, and I believe teachers out there need to have more training on educational technology or tech using applications and all. I do too. I need those trainings, and we need to be open to all of these possibilities. And I hope VIBAL will come up with use and have their IT experts in VIBAL to provide trainings for our teachers how to use applications and platforms to help teachers like ourselves be able to develop online presentations really well using different educational technologies. And finally, again, I've been telling this for the past few seminars that I've been given or webinars that I've been giving to you guys. School management should provide ample support to teachers in order for them to fully focus on preparing and delivering distance and online learning students. All support, please, schools out there, school administrators, be it public or private schools, we must provide all support for all our teachers. tanggalan muna sila ng mga demands natin na dating binibigay natin sa kanila. Let them focus more on on making the modules and creating the online presentations. And it takes a lot of time. And all other supports must be given so that they can fully function as teachers delivering distance education to our students. With that, thank you very much. And I hope to see you on Friday when I talk about, what's my topic on Friday? Mitch, do you know my topic on Friday?
I can't remember.
Okay, ito po. Ako na lang po. Sige po. My topic on Friday is on ako pala magdi-discuss ng student profiling. So sakala ko ibang tao. I'll be discussing about student profiling. How do we profile our students thoroughly for us to know what are the interests of our students and what are the basis for us to be able to incorporate in our module writing so that our modules, ito yung tanong po ni Sir, paano po maging interesting mga activities po natin at maging engaging activities? That would be through student profiling. So on Friday, my topic on YouTube, via YouTube, would be on student profiling. This is one of the many activities and programs that I teach schools to do to profile the students, from their learning styles down to their interests, reading interests, and to their activities that they do at home and with their friends. With that, thank you very much, and I hope to see you on Friday on how I will be able to teach you, help you in improving your module development via student profiles. Thank you very much and have a good day.
There we have it. In behalf of VIBAL Group Incorporated, I would like to thank you, Brother Ricky, for being our speaker this morning, for giving us an insightful, inspiring, and learning session. It is truly an honor to be with us today, sir. And to all our VIBAL viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. For those who are asking for a copy of the Brother Ricky's sample module, we're going to paste a PDF file here in his video later. So please kindly wait for it. And also, we encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official VIBAL Facebook and YouTube channel. Muli, maraming salamat po at magandang araw sa ating lahat. Goodbye everyone and stay safe.